But luck is what happens when you're doing everything you can to get something done. There's no way I'm going to be insulted when I call my video channel Crippled CEO. When I was in 7th grade, my electric wheelchair was dying. Growing up, my chairs would last around 5 years before they were just breaking down all of the time, and they were too unreliable to keep using. This chair was on its last legs, or wheels I guess, with a gang of quirks and idiosyncrasies I had to navigate to make it through the day. Unfortunately, power wheelchairs are expensive. The price tag on the chair I was going to get next was about $12,000. Insurance does not help. There's no government support. We were responsible for the entire thing out of pocket. And my parents didn't have anywhere close to that much money to spare. So, in the weeks leading up to Christmas, I took a Folgers coffee can with a hole cut in the lid, taped a label to the front of it that read Eric Lupton's Wheelchair Fund, and parked myself outside of Walgreens. Even at 12 years old, my extroverted salesman nature was already developing. That's a trait that has receded over the last decade or so, I think. And I engaged every single person that walked outside of that Walgreens. I didn't ask them for anything. I just said hello, I smiled, and I asked them how they were doing. And over again, people put money into my can. I did this every day after school, a few hours a day, and all day Saturday and Sunday. After a week, I figured that I was making about $20 per hour, which was pretty incredible. Even at $20 an hour though, it was going to take me 600 hours to reach my goal. We were only a couple of weeks away from Christmas, and we expected the donations to evaporate once the holiday spirit expired. I wasn't gonna make it. My dad had a mailing list of all of his pool fence customers, and he sent out a letter to each of them, telling my story, explaining how I was trying to raise money for this wheelchair. The response was great, but we were still a long way off from our goal. I kept doing the Walgreens thing, day in, day out. People gave change or $1, some gave a couple dollars, and some truly generous people would give me a $5 bill. Then one day, this dude, in a hurry, slides a $10 bill into my can. I'm stunned, and before I can thank him, he's gone. I kicked myself for not responding faster, and the guilt ate at me for the rest of my shift. When my mom came to pick me up, I told her the story, wishing I'd been able to tell him how much I appreciated this outlier donation. My parents took me to Longhorn that night so I could get what is still one of my all-time favorite meals, a loaded baked potato. I used to just literally live on baked potatoes. While enjoying my conduit for sour cream, bacon, and cheese, I looked up and realized that at the table next to us was the guy who had given me the $10 bill. This was the guy I hadn't been able to properly thank. My mom was concerned that it would look like we were using his money to go out to dinner, but I was adamant about going up to talk to him, and she eventually relented and allowed me. I rode over to his table and reminded him who I was and how grateful I was for the biggest donation I had received in all of my hours sitting outside of Walgreens. He was very humble about it, but then his wife started telling me that she worked for the Palm Beach Post, and she thought she may be able to get my story into the paper. I told her that would be great, and she took down my information. While I thought the lady was very nice, I didn't have high hopes for the publicity. I didn't know what she did to the paper, and even at 12 years old, I had already figured out that those kinds of promises rarely came to fruition. I kept chugging outside of Walgreens, and checks from the mailing list kept dripping in. At this point, we were hoping that we could get close enough that my parents could bridge the gap in the cost, but it still wasn't looking too great. And my dad was repairing my current chair almost every night, keeping it going so I could make it through the school day. But then, sure enough, we got a call from the Palm Beach Post. They wanted to do a story on my attempt at fundraising for a new wheelchair. They came out, they took pictures, and put it to print. The headline read something like, "All boy with cerebral palsy wants for Christmas is an electric blue power wheelchair." The story hit a nerve with people, and the donations started rolling in. We were pretty excited. It was going to be close, but it seemed like we might hit our goal. But then everything changed when we received an anonymous donation who absolutely refused to identify herself. We just knew she was an elderly lady for $5,000. I couldn't believe it. My parents couldn't believe it. Not only did we have enough for the chair, but we were able to set aside some money for future repairs and maintenance. It was unbelievable. There was no way we could have known when we started this what the path towards success would look like. We just started trying. And that's usually how these things go. In the words of UFC legend Conor McGregor, God loves a tryer. That was terrible. There was definitely some luck that happened there, but luck is what happens when you're doing everything you can to get something done. There have been many times in my life when I've started on a path not knowing how I could make it successful or what good could come of it. And just like this, things happen. This is the rationale behind going to every industry conference I've ever attended. I never know why I'm going specifically, but I do know that making the effort to go allows for unexpected, spontaneous things to occur. You just need to take the initial steps and do everything in your power. And then use the results of that work to pull yourself up to the next level. The other lesson here is to allow people the opportunity to step up and be generous. Create the opportunity for generosity. People want to help, let them. It's a win for everybody involved. Do you know who stepped up and was generous last night? Your mom. Unbelievably generous. She also subscribes to my channels and likes all my videos, and I think you should too. Thank you so much for watching, and you will see me on the next one.